迫る初夏、地獄の軍団。我らを狙う黒い影、世界の平和を守るため。Go, go, let's go! 輝くマシン。Rider, jump! バタン、Rider, kick! バタン、Kamen Rider, Kamen Rider, Rider, Rider. Hello, people of the internet. This is Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir, and that was a bastardization of the original Kamen Rider theme song. So, hello everybody, and welcome to my very first theatrical movie review since I have moved to Japan. Now, if you want to know more about why I'm in Japan now, you can check out my review that I recently did for the Ultraman manga, Volume 2, as well as the episode of the Sons of Serizawa podcast, Andres Rates Japan. But anyways, in case you haven't seen either of those videos, I am now stationed here in Japan. And of course, as you guys have already figured out, I'm still making videos. So yeah, just because I'm in another country doesn't mean I can't make videos for you guys. But this also means that I also get the opportunity to check out some films that are only available in Japan rather than America. The unfortunate side is that some American movies take a while to come here into Japan. For instance, 10 Cloverfield Lane is not available until June, I want to say. Zootopia is not until the end of April. Batman v Superman, luckily enough, came out the same time as it came out in America, so look forward to a review for that. Anyways, I just came back from seeing Kamen Rider 1, the 2016 film that came out last week that is meant to celebrate the 45th anniversary of the Kamen Rider franchise. For those of you who don't know what Kamen Rider is essentially like Power Rangers / Super Sentai and Ultraman, where it's this character that first appeared in 1971, I think, and ever since then, there has been, much like Power Rangers or Ultraman, there has been a new Kamen Rider with a new main character, a new backstory, a new supporting cast every single year. Well, practically every single year. And so after 45 years, they decided to make this movie focusing on the original Kamen Rider, the one that started it all, and even brought back Hiroshi Fujioka, the actor who played the character of Takeshi Hongo, the protagonist of the original series. Now, what this film essentially is, it's a lot like many other tie-in films. Now, if you ever seen a Naruto movie or a Bleach movie, a DBZ movie, or any sort of movie that connects to an ongoing TV series, you tend to notice this particular formula where the main character from the TV show happens to come across a brand new original character, and so that original character turns out to be the main focus of the plot, and that character kind of gets most of the character development, while the character from the established character from the show is there to tag along and, fight the good fight. So, in this case, we have Kamen Rider Ghost. As of 2016, Kamen Rider Ghost is the most recent Kamen Rider, and so the film starts out with a brief little introduction of Takeshi Hongo. You see him kicking ass outside of Japan, and he decides to come back to Japan. Meanwhile, the audience is introduced to Kamen Rider Ghost and his supporting cast, and eventually he comes across Shocker, the evil terrorist organization from the original Kamen Rider series, as well as Nova Shocker, newer sort of, kind of like Nova Shocker is like the neo-Nazis to the regular Nazis. And so there's this big rivalry between the old school Shocker and Nova Shocker over, who gets to rule the world. And so as Kamen Rider Ghost is trying to take on both organizations, you have the return of Takeshi Hongo reprising his role as Kamen Rider. And while this is all happening, we have Takeshi Hongo jumping into the action for the sake of protecting this particular girl named Mayu Tachibana, the granddaughter of the mentor of the original Kamen Rider from the original TV show. And so there is this very strong, almost like father-daughter relationship between Takeshi Hongo and Mayu Tachibana. And both Nova Shocker and the OG Shocker are trying their best to get their hands on Mayu because she has some sort of power within her that relates to the mythos of Kamen Rider Ghost. So it's up to the original Kamen Rider as well as Kamen Rider Ghost and his ally Kamen Rider Spectre to team up and take down both organizations before it's too late. So I do want to say that I would consider myself a fan of Kamen Rider, or more of a casual fan. I haven't delved deeply into the Kamen Rider franchise as I have with the likes of Power Rangers, Ultraman, and Godzilla. When it comes to my exposure to Kamen Rider, I have seen a good chunk of the original series. I've seen quite a bit of Kamen Rider Amazon, a little bit of Kamen Rider Black RX, and a little bit of Kamen Rider Ryuki, as well as its American incarnation, Kamen Rider Dragon Knight. But I probably had more exposure to the original Kamen Rider than any other writer in the franchise. So I was really glad to see that this movie focused mostly on the original Kamen Rider as opposed to the cast of Kamen Rider Ghost. As I said before, Takashi Hongo is kind of presented as the quote-unquote new character, while Kamen Rider Ghost and the gang kind of tag along for the ride. But even though I haven't seen the Kamen Rider Ghost TV series, it isn't that hard to get a good idea as to who these characters are and their relationship to one another. The one thing that I was kind of confused about was the fact that you have some of the Kamen Rider Ghost characters kind of spying on Mayu because they notice that Shocker is after her, so they kind of take on the role as teachers or student teachers to kind of spy on her. And I wasn't sure if being teachers is their regular profession or not, or if it was just a complete disguise for the movie. Again, I don't know what these people do for their daily lives outside of, kicking ass and all over Japan. But I'm very glad that Takashi Hongo, he is the main focus of the story. He's a much older character. He's has this very worn out, grizzled demeanor. The movie portrays this very strong relationship between Takashi Hongo and Mayu Tachibana. As I said before, they have this very strong, more like an estranged father-daughter relationship with one another. The main problem when it came to my viewing experience with the movie was there are no subtitles for this film. Luckily, it wasn't that hard to figure out what was going on in the story, especially since this is a very simplistic plot and it's very action-driven. But the biggest problem I had was understanding the details within this relationship of theirs. It is shown that Takashi has been away for a while, and Mayu is upset at Takashi for being gone for so long when she really needed him. I don't know the specifics as to why he was gone for so long, but what I was able to understand was the fact that Takashi had to struggle in this film between his responsibility of being this parental figure towards Mayu and his responsibility of being Kamen Rider and, protecting the world and saving the day and whatnot. Now, even though I wasn't able to understand the specifics of their dialogue, I did appreciate the performances that these two actors were giving. I especially loved how Hiroshi Fujioka, as Takashi Hongo, he was able to provide many different sides to this character. He showed this character as a badass. He kind of showed him as this frightening individual. He showed this guy as a very tender and loving character. And he was especially able to show the heroic side of this character, how he's very brave, he's willing to put his life on the line for the people that he loves. Very unselfish character, pretty much the very definition of what you would expect from such a classic superhero. And speaking of which, it was very interesting seeing the differences between the original Kamen Rider and a modern-day Kamen Rider. More specifically in how each character comes off. You have Takashi Hongo, who's a very serious character, and meanwhile the cast of Kamen Rider Ghost, they are very goofy and cartoonish, and that also applies to the fights themselves. A lot of people have complained that the more recent Kamen Riders have been nothing but big giant toy commercials, and you can clearly see that with Kamen Rider Ghost, where he and Kamen Rider Spectre have a million different types of transformations and attacks and all these gimmicky toys that they would wear as weapons. Meanwhile, you would have the original Kamen Rider. He doesn't need any of that. All he needs are his good old fists and legs for kicking and punching bad guys. And speaking of gimmicks, when it comes to the recent Kamen Riders, it reminds me of this one particular Kamen Rider movie that I saw at last year's G-Fest. It was a Kamen Rider W movie. And every time the characters would transform, the transformation belt that each Kamen Rider would have, would start announcing every single transformation. Joka, Churiga, Luna. And I remember my friends and I, grew so annoyed very quickly over that constant announcement. And that was also present with Kamen Rider Ghost, where every time Kamen Rider Ghost or Spectre would transform, there would be that announcer that would announce the transformation. Go, 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 Ghost! At which point I was like, God, can somebody turn the audio off on this belt? Meanwhile, when it comes to the original Kamen Rider, he's given a brand new suit. I don't think it was ever explained how Takashi Hongo got this new Kamen Rider suit, but it heavily invokes the original, well, not the original suit, but more like the second suit that he wore at the beginning of the series. In the original Kamen Rider show, I think there were about 4 or 3 different costumes. We had the original costume, which had a navy blue color palette, along with pink eyes. Then the second costume had a very bright green, as well as dark red eyes. And then later suits, that suit kind of evolved into the modern day Kamen Rider 1 suit that you would see in more recent forms of media, where you have the cyan helmet, the silver gloves and boots, the green chest plate, and the white stripes all along his legs and arms. Personally, I've never been a fan of that suit. I just don't think the colors fit together all that well. I've always been a fan of the first 2 suits, the navy blue and the green. Here we have this new suit, which is very heavily armored, and it's definitely made to invoke the second suit from the original series, and I think that color palette works a lot better than the one with the silver gloves and boots. Funny enough, when I saw that suit for the first time in promotional images leading up to the film's release, my friends and I had some complaints with the suit, how it looks too bulky. It makes the suit actor's head look very small. He looks more like a football player than an actual Sentai Tokusatsu-esque hero. But I gotta say, as bulky as the suit looks, it works very well. It's surprisingly very flexible. The stunt actor, I'm not sure if Hiroshi Fujioka was also the stunt actor inside the Kamen Rider suit, as he did when he was originally played the role back in 1971. But the performer was able to pull off all these awesome stunts within that suit. And I think a big part of it that helps the performer was the fact that as these giant shoulder pads he was wearing, where he was able to lift his arms, because there was like a hinge on the shoulder pads that allowed the shoulder pads to lift as the character moved his arms. Now, as for the design of Kamen Rider Ghost, since I doubt I'll ever get to talk about Kamen Rider Ghost again on this channel, I really like the design of that costume as well. I like the hoodie/jacket that he wore. I think orange and black work very well together. Same with Kamen Rider Spectre. The blue and black contrast very well with one another. I wasn't so much a fan of this red transformation that Ghost had. It's a nice shade of red, but I think the red takes away too much from the black that was present in the default suit. In terms of transformations, I noticed that Ghost and Spectre had this gimmick from the show called, what are they called? Icons. I think that's what they're called. Where there are these plastic eyeballs that they place into their belts, and then they get a transformation. And guess what? The jacket pretty much is the transformation. So there are different jackets that they would summon, and when they put on the jacket, they'd have these extra powers. And near the end of the film, it was revealed that they have several of these icons that allow them to wear jackets that give them the slight appearance and powers of the last 6 most recent Kamen Riders. What was it, like W, Force, Drive, Game, or Gaim. And while they were using these weapons and attacks from the older riders, all I can think was, don't you think you could have used these overpowered attacks a little bit earlier in the plot? But I figured, okay, I guess it's one of those things where you save the best attacks for the climax of the film. Now, as for the villains, a thing that I immediately noticed and highly appreciated was the fact that when we had the original Shocker, we see 3 of the cyborg mutant creatures leading their army of henchmen, and their costumes look like they came just right out of the 70s. You see, on the costumes, you see the paint is kind of chipping away. You see the suits look very worn out. You see a lot of creases on them and folds. And the henchmen had the skin-tight spandex suits. Meanwhile, you look at Nova Shocker, and they have much better, higher quality costumes, more elaborate costumes that make the villains of from Nova Shocker look all that more intimidating and more modern. And they have the henchmen have the same basic design, except it's not spandex and just like it's not like spandex and simple design. It looks like they're kind of wearing arm. They take your classic henchman design and actually make them slightly armored. And speaking of the henchmen, there was this one moment in the film that I really dug, or I really got a kick out of, where all the henchmen on both Shocker and Nova Shocker have these very high-pitched voices, and they just speak a bunch of gibberish, kind of like the minions from the Despicable Me movies. And there's this one particular scene where one of the henchmen from Shocker and another henchman from Nova Shocker, they're in their casual attire, and they confront each other at a bar, and they're still talking in their high-pitched, squeaky voices, and they just get into a bar fight and bust out their respective henchman uniforms. It was quite hilarious to see that. And I like the contrast between Shocker and Nova Shocker, where with Shocker, they're very over the top. Their main objective is global domination. Meanwhile, Nova Shocker, they're much more refined, where they want to take over the world's resources and strong-arm the Earth's governments into giving them more power. For instance, they would take away all the electricity in the city, and so that they can get the government to sign a contract that would allow them more power over the country's resources. Also, another aspect to Nova Shocker that I liked was the fact that their cyborg mutant Crete monsters had human forms, and whenever they transformed, they had transformation belts similar to Kamen Rider. And I thought that was a nice way of making the distinction between the more technologically advanced Nova Shocker and the more brutal and savage and over-the-top original Shocker, where none of the mutants had any transformation or transformation belts or equipment, anything like that. But I guess overall, Nova Shocker just kind of come off as very generic Shonen Jump-esque villains that you would see in any sort of tie-in movie. And I guess at the end of the day, this really is just an average tie-in movie. The only draw is Kamen Rider Ghost and the original Kamen Rider himself. And I think this is a movie that Kamen Rider fans, even casual Kamen Rider fans who at least know who the original character is, I feel like they're going to get the most out of this film. Kind of like a Dragon Ball Z movie. Anyone who hasn't seen Dragon Ball Z is not going to appreciate a Dragon Ball Z movie as much as a Dragon Ball Z fan. And that's certainly the case here. The main draw are the Kamen Riders themselves. The plot kind of just serves as an excuse to put these characters in this situation. However, I feel like the story here focuses so much on that relationship, and because that relationship works very well, just from my experience, not having any subtitles, but just looking at the performances of the actors themselves, I feel like this movie certainly works at telling a good story while also providing some very nice spectacle. So I guess for a casual tokusatsu fan, for a fan of, the rubber suits and monsters and superheroes from Japan, I would give this film a 3 out of 5, but if you're a big-time Kamen Rider fan, I think you're going to enjoy the hell out of this film, and for that I would give that a 4 out of 5. I definitely want to see this movie again. Hopefully I really want to track down a version of this with subtitles so I can appreciate the quality of the writing in this film. But if you're able to come across this film and it doesn't have subtitles, don't worry, it's not that complex of a plot for you to get behind outside of the whole relationship angle. But other than that, it's very easy to get into. It certainly pays a lot of respect to the original Kamen Rider, and I'm very glad that the actor, Hiroshi Fujioka, was able to come back to reprise his role. Now, I understand that Kamen Rider 1, the first Kamen Rider, the character himself has appeared in previous movies, but as far as I understand, the original actor did not portray Kamen Rider 1. Essentially, you would always see him already in his suit, so I'm assuming either it's just a stunt actor with a voice actor, and maybe sometimes that voice actor could be the same actor. I'm not sure, because again, the only other recent movie I've seen is just that Kamen Rider W movie. But yeah, they really tried to hammer the fact home that, hey, we've got the original actor here reprising his role. It seems to be a big deal, so I'm guessing this is the first time he's actually this heavily involved. And I feel like it's very appropriate, considering that this is the movie that was made to celebrate the 45th anniversary of the series. I was really glad that they didn't try to go in a direction where it's like, oh, let's get every Kamen Rider here to celebrate the 45th anniversary. Rather, no, probably because they've already done something like that. Maybe they've done like 2 or 3 movies already where they had every single Kamen Rider. But I'm very surprised that they decided to take this in a more personal direction, where it's like, hey, let's just focus on the original character that started it all, rather than getting every single character here for a big anniversary hoopla. I really like that artistic decision, and I feel like, yeah, any Kamen Rider fan is gonna dig the hell out of this. So anyways, those have been my thoughts on Kamen Rider 1, the 2016 film. And I hope you've enjoyed this new solo unscripted format. This is my first time doing it. Normally, whenever I try to go unscripted, I prefer to have another person with me to at least try to work off of. I've never really tried to go the whole solo route before, unless it was a scripted video. But I decided to try it out with this review. And yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think of this, if you'd like to see more videos in this style. Maybe I will hopefully improve the more I do these types of videos. So anyways, hope you guys enjoy the review, and until next time everybody, take care.